Hey everyone, Numidia here. With the second classic World of Warcraft stress test closing just right now, I wanted to make a video to talk about what happened during both of those stress tests and to give my opinion about it in general. But first, for those who don't know, Blizzard Entertainment just finished running its second set of stress tests. The first one took place on May 22nd and the second one on May 30th. The point of a stress test is to test server stability with heavy loads of players running and logging at the same time on the same area to try to get the servers as unstable as possible. Now, the stress test had its fair share of server crashes and instabilities, and in fact, by the end of both stress tests, Blizzard announced that they enabled fixes that made the servers even more stable to get a launch experience that is super smooth on August 27th. I personally was present during those events at the start and at the end of them. I managed to level 5 characters to level 5 and 1 to level 10 during that time. So I will tell you what I think about my experience with Classic in general at the end of this video. I also had the chance to participate in huge developer events with tons of players fighting incredibly tough bosses spawned by GMs and devs in Stormwind. Those events were a ton of fun and they were probably the most fun I've had in World of Warcraft since a long time. They also helped test server stability in a unique way, which we will all talk about later on this video. Now without further ado, let's talk about what happened during both of those stress tests. So, as I said in the intro, there was actually two sets of stress test servers. The first one was on May 22nd and the second one was on May 30th. The first one probably had the most unstable launch, taking somewhere around 2 to 3 hours before we could have a stable play experience. During the first couple hours, the servers kept crashing, getting locked. If you managed to get onto them, you sometimes simply couldn't create your character. And if you managed to create your character and get in the game, the servers would just lag way too much for you to be able to do anything. Which is fine, that's what the stress test is for. It took us a couple hours before the server stabilized and enabled us to actually play the game and level our characters. Now, the leveling experience was pleasurably surprising to me, not only because it was a way better leveling system than anything I experienced in retail for the last 6 or 7 years, but mostly because I expected it to take me hours and hours to hit level 5, with so many people around the area. But actually, it took me somewhere around an hour to an hour and a half to reach that level. It wasn't as bad as I thought, and that's something to keep in mind if you guys are thinking about skipping the first few days, thinking that the leveling will be impossible. It totally was possible for me. Now the servers were up for 24 hours, which let me level I think 5 more characters to level 5 to get a good feel for the classic product we're getting. And by the end of it, the developers decided to invite everyone to Stormwind by spawning a huge Ragnaros boss on top of the statues. Masses started gathering, and after a moment, GMs began spawning raid bosses and hoggers all around the place. We also got Patchwork to spawn, which we pulled all the way to the King's Castle. It was a lot of fun, and I will talk way more about it in a bit. The next stress test took place on May 30th and finished just now as I'm recording this video. This one had a way more stable launch experience. It still crashed a couple times and we got tiny lags here and there, but overall it was miles away from what we experienced on May 22nd. Nothing in particular happened for the start of this one. Unlike the first one, the devs just wanted to get it running normally without spawning any bosses or anything, to replicate what a real launch experience would look like on the back end. They also let us keep our previous characters, so I grabbed my previous level 5 warrior and I started getting it to level 10. The leveling itself again this time was pleasurably surprising for me. It took me only a couple hours to get from level 5 to level 10. Something to note was that grinding was a really good way to level, almost as good as questing. So I focused on grinding for half of those remaining levels and on questing for the last half of it. I also explored the world much more this time. As I hit level 10, it enabled me to survive more easily around the world. So I joined a couple of friends and we went to Menethil, Ratchet, Tenaris, Stranglethorn. It was a lot of fun. And then, just like last stress test, but this time without any GM's intervention, the community by itself started gathering around Stormwind, writing the name Omar with their character, which is a developer in the classic team, and going on circles around it until the man himself appeared in front of us and started spawning bosses just like last time. There is something really amazing about being surrounded by hundreds and thousands of people all having fun at the same time. It was the most fun I had in the game, and I can't wait to tell you more about it. So I would now like to talk about my opinions and impressions about the classic stress test. This part is not going to be scripted, I am just going to be talking, so I'm sorry if I repeat some points or if my brain just lags out. I just want to give a natural opinion and impression about what I experienced personally, because I had a lot of fun during this stress test, probably the most fun I've had in the game for at least 6 or 7 or 8 years. Now, I want to specifically talk about the lags, and I was really surprised by how more stable than what I expected the servers were. So, if you go on retail now and you invite 40, 50, 60 people and they all start having duels or a huge world PvP event, the servers are probably gonna crash. If not, they will probably lag a lot. On Classic, and the developers talked about this, on Classic, spell queuing and stuff is way more simple, so it enables you to have way more people at the same place, and that was really noticeable. There was points where there was thousands, 2,000, 3,000 people around me because everyone was getting invited to groups on the same layer, and we're going to be talking about layer in a second, but the servers were really more stable than I expected them to be. It was truly amazing, and I talked about this on the first part, but there is something really special about being with thousands of people around you and having fun all together, sharing the same passion and all of you screaming at the same time on a video game. It's really a nice experience. Now, I want to talk about layering as well. Layering is very controversial. Some people want it, some people say they don't want it. I personally think that realistically we needed some kind of system that just lets you play the game as it was, because let's face it, we cannot re-experience the experience of 2004, the crashes that took place there, and also there's way more WoW players now. If you get everyone on the same server, there's going to be servers with 10, 20,000 people, which means that the game is going to be unplayable, literally. So what Blizzard thought about is to make this system called layering, which lets you have at any given point at most 3k on your layer, which means that people can actually experience the game as it was, because the servers back in the day were 2 to 3k max. So I think this system was unavoidable, and I think I'm really happy with what they're going with. And either way, they said they're not going to be keeping this more than phase 1, which is a couple or 3 months after launch. So I'm really happy about this system. Now, the gameplay itself, it was really amazing. I really enjoyed playing Classic on this version. It felt so smooth. The game itself the game aged really well. We could play the game, and a lot of people talked about this, and we all thought Classic was just pure nostalgia, but Classic is actually a good game, and you can pretty much experience that by yourself. If you go and play it, you're gonna have a lot of fun, even if you thought you wouldn't. Now, the leveling also was really nice. I talked about this in the intro, but I was really surprised by how easy it was to level, even with all of those people. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not as bad as you guys think. It's really not as bad. So don't get deterred from playing the first days, because I think it's gonna be fine with the layering. Now, the most fun I had was the boss events. GM spawning bosses, developers appearing in front of you, you taking tough foes that are like 60 times your level with thousands of other players around you. There's really something really nice about this, being around your community, because let's face it, we built a community together, and we're all here having nerd screams together. And I think it was one of the most enjoyable parts of this stress test, just being here all together in Stormwind with all my friends and everyone else. It was really something I am looking forward to doing again and again and again. I cannot wait about it. Now that's it for this video. I hope you guys got a good idea of what happened in Classic World of Warcraft stress test. Go ahead and give me your opinion about it. Did you enjoy the stress test? Did you not? Also, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and like it, and also subscribe for me. For more videos like this in the future. You can also catch me live on Twitch to talk about Classic or anything in particular. The link is shown on screen right now, and you can also find it in the video description. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys on Twitch.